If you want to change your life, your habits, your relationship, your health, anything, you want to make more money, what research shows is that you will be more successful, more inspired, more motivated, and more fulfilled if you are kind and encouraging to yourself along the way.
Hello and welcome back to the Shift podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, and as always, we have another truly incredible guest. This is someone who I genuinely love their mind. There's certain people you hear talk and you can hang on every word. It's just gold that comes out. And I love the transparency, the work the person has done on themselves that shows through in all they do. And beyond that, it's not something where they keep it close to the vest, but they share it, like literally push it out into the world. I've had some people that have worked for her. She doesn't know this, that have worked for her in the past that have had nothing but amazing things to say about her. And I think that's a unique thing when you can have someone who's been in the industry for such a long time and to only hear nothing but awesome things. So I'm excited today to share this person's heart with you, their mind with you. Without further ado, welcome to the show, my new friend, Mel Robbins. How are you?
Wow. That's a nice compliment to hear that somebody that used to work with me had nice things to say about me.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I always find that that I always want to know how people talk about me when I'm not there. Like, I think things live and die in the dark, like positives and negatives. And the dark conversations that I've been privy to have all been amazing. So it's a good thing, I think.
Holy cow. That's a really interesting thing. You know, what immediately jumped to mind, my husband and I have been married for 25 years. Mm-hmm. When we first started dating, and I would say into the first 10 years of our marriage, whenever we would bump into somebody and you kind of start that, oh, where are you from? And where'd you go to school? Oh, you went to that school? Oh, do you know so-and-so? I would brace because I would be waiting for somebody to go, oh, I slept with her. Like one of those things, like that somehow we would bump into somebody that I had a hookup with, or they knew somebody that I did, and here I am with my new husband. And so when you said somebody from the past, I was like, oh God,
where's it going?
Yes.
What's funny is, so my wife and I think I'll tell you, we were divorced for a little while, and we live in the same town, right? And so I actually was, I for some reason, 29-year-old Anthony was wise enough. I was like, I had a 30-mile rule, which means that if I was to engage with any woman, it had to be outside 30 miles of my hometown for that specific purpose. So somehow I was able to ward off any craziness. But man,
that's very smart. Very smart.
It was weird. It was weird, but I guess it worked. I just didn't want to deal with anybody. And I also, honestly, true transparency, I didn't want someone to like pop up at my house and be like, "Want to hang out?" So I was like, keep it at a distance. So it was a little bit selfish.
Keep it at
but
a distance. Yep.
Yeah, it had a fit. Here's the first question, because this has always been one that I want to see how people answer. And you can answer it however you want. Be as audacious as you want. You could be humble, your choice. But this weirdly opens the conversation. Let's say I'm walking around town and I sit down next to this woman with cool glasses and blonde hair, and it's you, and you don't know me, and start talking to me. Why should I listen to you?
I don't think you should.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
I think that you should do what you authentically want to do. And if I have a vibe or an energy about me that clicks, then you'll want to listen and talk to me. And if I don't, you shouldn't listen or talk to me.
I like that. That might be one of the most left field answers yet. Usually it's like, oh, because I did this and I did this, or because I really want to just know about you, kind of thing. But I've never heard anybody say you shouldn't. So already delivered in true amazing ways. And I do get that. I think there is this perspective that I lead with that, because a lot of people in our positions who are being interviewed, it's like, oh, you should talk to me because I'm special. And I don't know if it's always the case, because I'm not a fit for everybody. Do you find you've ever had conversations where you feel like I'm supposed to be important, and then someone makes it clear you're not to them?
Yeah. I recently had this interview where it was a guy who I think had been in broadcast forever. And he had invited me to come on his podcast. And he's not on camera. He keeps his camera off, and I just say, hey, I've done some research, but could you tell me about your audience and what your ideal intention is for this so that I can make sure that the way that I show up in this interview really aligns with what your audience likes. And he's like, oh, it's a generic audience. It's like he was just very dismissive.
Yeah.
And then he asked me the first question, which was, so tell me about the high five habit. And it was a wide open question. And so I said what I normally say, because, I was explaining whatever. I've just written a book about it. And so I'm telling the story, and all of a sudden he goes, could you stop talking?
Really?
We need a back and forth. I don't need you to give me a goddamn presentation.
Wow. That makes me feel uncomfortable right now. Like, oh, that's odd.
I literally, this happened last week. And I just felt like that energy shift thing happened. There was something about me or his day, or maybe the booking got shoved down his throat and he didn't even have any interest in it. I don't know. But there was something that was just off. And what I have to applaud the guy for, not the way in which he did it, but I do think that he said what was true for him. He didn't restart the interview, which is what probably would have been a better thing to do, because I immediately went like, oh, well, two of us can do this. And I started to go, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, no, I get it. It's the meeting of the minds.
The passive, untransformed 25-year-old Mel Robbins showed up for the second half of that interview. I can't wait to hear it. I think that goes back to why I answered the question of why should you listen to me the way that I did.
It's poignant. It's almost like it's timely for that same question.
Yeah, we spend too much of our lives pretending and managing other people's expectations and wasting time and energy on things that we actually aren't interested in or care about. And I think it's very important for everyone to wake up and realize at some point this thing called life is over. And it's important that you not waste it pretending to do things or spending time on things that don't matter to you. And you don't have to be rude about it. But when you have a level of self-awareness about what you really click with or interested in or want to change about your life, you now know what to spend your time on.
Yeah. I think even that aspect of self-awareness, it gives you better peace too. Years ago, someone told me, they said, it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. And so when you're running around, an interesting one. Yeah. I was like, ooh.
Wow.
Because you're floating around and like your life's funky.
One. You need to do a whole video about that. Will you do a video about that? Yes.
Yeah. I'll do a video about it. See, you've got filming next week. I'm going to get a video about that. Because there's a concept there that's, when you unpack it, I think the experience of life we're unaware is because of how we're operating in the jar. But we can just haphazardly and unintentionally be affecting things outside of us with no clue. Then we keep perpetually doing the same thing. Please do.
Let's unpack this in real time.
Yeah.
So if we take that analogy, it's hard to see the label when you're the one inside the jar. If you look back at the last year of your life, what is the label that is on the outside of the jar that you couldn't see?
You're asking me personally. It sounds like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed you were doing.
I'll answer it too.
I was like, in midway, she's gonna like poke me. No one does this. I love this. All right. My label here, honest one. I have a son, ADHD. I have ADHD, less of the hyper nowadays, or I just move it different ways. But we have this clashing of personalities, and I want him to be, and I operate in ways that the true Anthony, the quiet one back there goes, "You're doing it wrong," and the one that's out here is like, "Shut up, I'm done. Go to your room." Right? So the label that I've had is, "You are not the perfect father to him." Not that I'm a bad father, not that I'm a great, but I'm not the perfect, right? And so the label is, I need to spend more time parenting my son the way my son needs to be parented, not the way I want to parent him.
That's beautiful. What that made me think about is that one of the biggest challenges that I have as a mom is dealing with any issue where our kids feel anxious, because it triggers my own anxiety, and then I rush in to try to get rid of the anxiety and solve the situation, which only makes the anxiety stick around and come back because I'm not teaching them how to problem solve through it. I'm rescuing them. And so that's been a really difficult issue for me to try to work through. But that's not the label on my jar this year.
Okay. I know what you're talking about there, though. Yeah, it's that one issue. Yeah. Parents, my best friend is called
you're
about
triggered
that.
by the shit that's just like that's yours, that you haven't dealt with. That's why it makes you annoying. It reminds you of stuff about yourself that you don't like.
Yeah, true.
So I think my label would be it's a little dramatic. We're going to go for the marketing to try to sell
Let's
this.
Go.
Okay,
let's go.
So if I'm, it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. And you're inside the jar because it's frustrating to try to get the lid off, right? No matter how hard you crank it. I think the label on the jar I've been trapped in is successful but miserable.
Oh, very interesting. That as soon as you said that, I thought back to one of the videos I saw you post about, I got this book to write, but I'm just doing dishes and cleaning the fridge out. You're like, I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. And it's like, do I want this? Do I want the TV show? We even had a conversation about that. Yeah, keep going.
Well, about 18 months ago, our mutual friend, Brendan Bouchard, I called him. I was having yet another breakdown in something related to business operations, business process, that kind of stuff that I'm just horrendous at. And he said this, well, this is all fixable. What do you want? And I said, I don't know. I don't know what I want. And it dawned on me that my success was born out of a crisis. I mean, just 5 years ago, my husband and I still had liens on the house that we live in because of the restaurant business that my husband had been in. And I became so successful, but it was out of this fear that we were going to lose everything. I mean, we went from $800,000 in debt and facing bankruptcy and liens on the house to just this insane level of success. And I never stopped to hit the pause button and say, okay, you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to panic. You need to be smart and you need to work hard, but you don't have to operate from a place that everything's an emergency and everything's going to get taken away. You can operate from a place of safety and confidence. You can stop being reactive and you can start being strategic. And, when Brendan asked me that, what do you want your life to look like? And I paused. I'm like, I don't know. And he said, well, how much time do you want to spend with your family? And the first thing that I thought was, well, I can't spend as much time as I'd like to because then I won't be as successful as I have been. And how am I going to make the impact if I'm not running to chase a plane? And how am I going to, I immediately went to
normalcy,
all of the stuff I was doing. And in the lockdown, in lockdown. We're not in a lockdown, but in quarantine and in the
Yeah.
pandemic and working remote and having to kind of reinvent how you do things, all of which only magnified the things I'm terrible at. Process, managing process,
Yeah.
operations.
Well, you're the creative. You need an integrator for all
I'm
that.
a creative. Yeah, I'm like an artist. I have been wildly successful, but still really unhappy because everything still feels like it's not working right. And I realized recently it's because I never answered Brendan's question.
Oh, you never did.
And so that's what I'm in the middle of doing right now. I'm in the middle of answering the question, what do I want my life to look like?
That's a question nobody asks.
Well, yeah, like think about it for a minute. What do you want your life to look like? And I'll tell you, it's really hard to answer that question. And the reason why it's hard to answer the question is because the second that I allow my mind to drift to something I've never done before, and I'll give you an example, like the number one thing that I want to do this year, my number one project, is to not only launch a podcast, but to reorganize my whole business so that it becomes the central hub of everything else that we do.
Interesting.
And when I think about it, I immediately say, I don't want to be running to catch planes. I guess I need to be in New York. I guess I need to be in Boston. I guess I need to be somewhere big to do it. Nobody would ever come to Southern Vermont. Like I wouldn't possibly be able to compete. And that's, again, all of the fear driving the answer. And so even for somebody that some of you may look at and go, oh, well, Mel has it figured out and she's made the money and paid off the debt and she's, got a big following. She must be able to answer that question. Your fears are so much a part of who you are that every time you go to level up or ask, well, what's next? Or what do I want to do? You will immediately level it back down based on that fear. And so that's what I'm in the middle of right now. And that's the only thing that will allow me to get out of that fucking jar.
That's interesting. It's that, who is it? I want to say Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, talks about homeostasis, right? It's that level of, even if it's the evil I know, it's better than the evil I don't. And so the moment I start feeling that thing, it's like this uncomfortable water. It's funny you say this. So, as we are creative, we create different things. This weird idea popped into my head oddly, because I'm gonna be honest, I have a very amazing balance of life right now. Like I know what I want. My life moves smooth. My wife and I just got a chiropractic visit together. We work out, we walk with the kid. Like it's weird how I broke my life, but fixed it in a really cool way. And I found that this thing that I'm talking about lately is something called hustle harmony. It's this, we're trying to define it as a team. I have my versions and my perspective, but it has something to do with like feeding the monster that wants to move, but at the same time realizing that harmony isn't balance. Like harmony, balance is this scale, and right? Harmony is like there's a multitude of different instruments, different tempos. There's heavy in the drums, on the hi-hat, right? But at times throughout the song, the tempo changes, the instrument changes. I might be heavy in work now or heavy in relationship later. So I'm playing with this. This is real time we're talking about this thought of like creating a hustle harmony. Like that's what it almost sounds like that's in the direction of what you're trying to find out. It's kind of what I want, but what you want doesn't sound like it's a thing, right? But it's a place you might exist.
Yeah, that's a great distinction, because I would say that my homeostasis, if that's the right word, in terms of the thing that I'm used to, is busyness.
Yeah.
And running to catch a plane, running to do something, moving from one place to the next. And I know that especially to create more and to have the kind of connection to my husband and to be present for especially our son who's 16 and has a couple more years of high school, I need to be still. Yeah. And I love the word harmony. It's interesting that you're using it because whenever anybody asks me about life balance, I say, I don't believe in that. I believe in work-life harmony, like things fit together when they're in harmony. And one thing that I'll share with you, just hoping that it helps you as you think about this project, is that one of the most important things when it comes to creating harmony is boundaries. So that things, because they will only fit together if they aren't competing with one another. And that doesn't mean the rigidity of this. It just means you don't want to find yourself in a zone where it's not kind of the black and white kind of weave together. Everything's a gray blob because you're always working or always together and it's never any kind of, there's got to be a little bit of separation. You still got to hear the horn for it to be in harmony with the drums.
True. Yeah. I agree with that. It's funny. As I'm workshopping something for a workshop Friday, and that's exactly one of the final points is it's all great. Have a great plan, but if you don't have bulletproof boundaries, like things that nobody gets in and out of, right? And they could move, but like you'll fall apart. And a lot of it's odd. Tell me your thoughts are on this. I find that it's not just like the TV. It's actually majority other people. Like it's the boundaries aren't just the like I got to put a boundary when I use my phone and a focus thing. Like that's all good and well. But it's like my wife wanted to come in and hang out when I'm in the middle of doing something, or my kids, Dad, can do this, and having that weird boundary of how do I keep it, but how do I maintain an aspect? And tell me how this, because this is part of the conversation, is like I find that a lot of us operate in guilt, like toxic guilt, which can be deterring from me feeling joyful, but also like a guiding guilt. I messed up in the past.
Give me an example. So where are you feeling guilt?
Yeah, so I'll call it toxic guilt, right? Which I don't have much of anymore. But in the past, I had this guilt that riddled me in a sense of I was living a life that wasn't in line with how my adoptive mom had raised me, right? So she'd raised me to be I beat all the statistics, played in the NFL, and at some point, I'm divorced, suicidal, everything's down, I'm out of shape, right? And I had this heavy guilt that was like, I messed it all up. I don't deserve to have more. And because of that, I didn't do much. And then at a certain point, I was like, no, I deserve more. Like she would want me to do more. And now I have it as a guiding guilt, I call it, which is I don't want to go. I'm aware of it. I'm not going to say I don't have guilt. I do. But because of that, in a moment my son comes in or I'm doing something, he says, hey, can we do this? Like, yeah, put it down, tuck it away, because it's guiding me in the right direction from past stuff. And I think that has been one of the things that I've dealt with. And I think I'm finding a lot of other people might have. Do you have personally any of those kind of things that may be like, I can attest it, may seem similar?
Well, first of all, I love the distinction toxic guide versus guiding because, academically they talk about it in terms of destructive guilt, which is toxic guilt. It makes you ruminate and trash yourself and just feel bad. And then the productive, which is what you're calling guiding. And I love the guiding word because it makes me feel like those feelings of guiding guilt are aligned with your true values. And they motivate you to change in ways that align with your values. And so that's super good. That's super, super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like what I'm doing as I answer this question, what do I want my life to look like? Is I'm looking for areas where there is friction. So any area,
kind of friction?
I'll give you an example. So this morning, I was talking with somebody that works on my team, and we were talking about the newsletter that's going to go out this week to our newsletter list. And we have a huge newsletter list. And I got to be honest with you, I hate writing the newsletter. I hate it.
It's honest.
I fucking hate it. Like I'll like just put an exclamation point on it.
All right.
And I feel a lot of pressure around it because there's 800,000 people on the newsletter list. And I don't even know what the newsletter is, honestly. Like sometimes I send out things that 5 things that made a difference in some days I tell a story about something screwed up that happened with the family that's funny. Some days I'll send you, it's like schizophrenic. I don't even know what the hell it is. Like it's this. And anytime somebody raises the word newsletter, I get that itchy feeling over my whole body that, you know how when you come out of the ocean and your skin starts to dry and it starts to feel all itchy? That's how I feel when somebody says the word newsletter. Because the process of writing it, creating it, all of it creates a ton of friction for me. The process is broken. I'm not clear about what I'm doing. Like, it's just not joyful.
Yeah.
And one of the things I know that I want in my life is I want to have more fun and be more joyful in the process of doing work. And there's a lot of things that I do in my work life that is really fun and has no friction. And I feel toxic guilt around the newsletter and the fact that I should be writing something once a week and I should be doing something and I should have a strategy with it. And it just gnaws at me. And finally this morning, we had this huge breakthrough around guilt and around friction. And I said, I realize what it is. Since I don't have a strategy, because I'm not trying to sell you a course, I'm not trying to like market to you, I'm just trying to stay connected to you, it's not aligned with my values. Everything that I do is deeply personal, and it is intentional. And everywhere that there's friction, particularly in my business life, it's not aligned with my values. And that's why there's friction. And so I think the answers are revealing themselves to me because I'm answering the question through the negative. I'm listing out all the things in my life that have friction or that I dread or that that deplete me. And those answers reveal what you need to be doing more of and what you need to be doing less of.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful because I as you talk through, I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's just a lot of things, and it's maybe I got to do my own digging, right? Because there's things that we have that that are like I don't love it, but I feel like I have to. But it's funny because I can't tell you why. I'm not gonna feel like I have to. and what you're saying is poke into that because I'm sure everybody listening has those things. Now maybe you have a career and a job, you have to do those things, or get your paycheck, right? But in the space of what you're talking about, there are probably things we enjoy doing or we do that do cause friction. Do you think prolonged, if you continue to do this, what's the outcome of those who just kind of like, oh, I just got to endure it. It's just a thing I got to do, and accept that. Is it okay to accept it? Should you not? Like, if someone's battling that right now,
it's certainly okay to like. It's your life. If you would like to live a life full of friction and wake up every day with a bunch of things that you should do and that you have to do, and you want to suffer through that, have at it. I mean, like you get to choose. I don't want to be unhappy. Yeah. I don't want to miss another 5 years of my kids' lives because I'm running to catch a plane because I'm scared we're going to lose the house. I want to get out of this jar I'm trapped in, and I want to recreate the whole thing so that I focus my time and energy on things that are highly leveraged, on things that are wildly creative. I want to do it with excellence and beauty. And I don't want to feel like everything, not everything, but a lot of it is like a one-off or a quick thing to do this, and it's not tied to something bigger. And, what's interesting is this person I was talking to was wonderful because I said, do you have the capacity to just let me vent for a minute? I'm like, this has nothing to do with you, but let me just get this like vomit out real quick and then we can kind of problem solve. And she said, well, what is it exactly? And I said, well, it's the lack of strategy. It's the fact that it's not tied to something bigger. We're not really selling anything. So it's not like we have to do some big funnel. It's haphazard. And then I said, and plus, I'm fucking dyslexic. The hardest thing in the world for me is to write. And she goes, well, I never understood why you aren't just sending out a quick 2-minute video to your newsletter list every week.
In my head, it was one of the things I thought. I'm like, you must have thought of that. It's amazing you just said that.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
We could send a video? She's like, yeah. She's like, the people that sign up for the texting, they just love the little encourage. I'm like, holy shit, you're right. We could just do a 2-minute, here's a Sunday Scaries pep talk for you for the week ahead. Go get them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's no friction. It now is deeply personal. It now aligns with something I love to do. And now I know that we just need to put a process in place, and we also need to not have it happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
3 weeks from now, we can implement this. So I'm learning.
I like it. That's beautiful. I wish I would have like thought of that we're like, oh yeah, I've said it before, but in my head I'm like, yeah, we just do videos sometimes. I have a great team that extracts the little bullet points in ways that I couldn't say it, and they make it cool words. I'm like, oh, great job, and we put it out into the world. It's it's interesting as I'm listening to you. Typically, you have people that are starting out. They say, document the journey to the top, and then there's people who are like, I'm at the top, and they're just sharing the top of the mountain. Here's what's up here, and it's cool. It almost feels like you're saying, I'm about to go through this process. I'm going to document the journey again, knowing you and how you share and what you do. Would that be like accurate to say in some way?
Yeah, it's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever feel like I arrive anywhere. I am always, given that I feel like I'm more of an artist than anything else, and my medium just happens to be making videos, writing books, talking to people, soon to be podcasting as well. I think when I finally gave myself permission to realize that being a businesswoman and a deal maker and being an artist are the two things that I love to do. And it means that I'm always going to be creating something. And with every project or every new thing that we take on, there's always something that you're going to learn. I mean, what's interesting and what I'm really proud of is that everything that I have done in the last 10 years, I had never done before. Ever. I didn't study to do this. I let my curiosity and I let my desire lead. And so when I decided to write the 5-Second Rule book, I had never written a book. I literally wrote the book because so many people were emailing about my TEDx talk and asking questions. I'm like, if I ever want to see my kids, I better write a damn book. And as I've already confessed to you, being dyslexic, really, really hard to do. Yeah. So I self-published that book. We self-record the audiobook. I learned a tremendous amount in that process. I had never done projects for Audible before. We just jumped in and figured it out. When, just 4 years ago, I had 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I started doing what Gary Vaynerchuk was doing. I just hired 2 really awesome, talented folks. They traveled with me. We documented everything just like you do. We started cutting it up, and we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so one of the skills that I've developed that I love and that will serve me forever is that I love learning new things. I love trying new things. It's why I'm so excited about launching a podcast. It's brand new. I haven't done it before. And so before I do it, I'll become a student of it. Yeah. And just like any good student, I will also probably be sharing my notes with other students. And I'll probably also be reporting back about what was on the test to other students. And I'll probably also talk about what professors work and which thing happened, because that's just who I am. And so I wouldn't be able to do it any other way than to bring people along for the ride and share all the mistakes we made and all the kind of crazy things that we learned doing it. That we didn't expect to learn.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why your mind is such a cool place to listen. Because when we were at Napa, and I obviously just kind of mentioned in person, I was overhearing you talk to, it might have been Mel or it might have been Dean. And just I was copiously taking notes. Like it was gold dripping out of your mouth. I'm like, all right, write this. I got to talk to her privately and figure stuff out. I was just like, but you only get that because of the practice of going and doing new things or having some topic to talk about. And the craft of explaining it in a way that engages humans, which is second nature to you now, it's beautiful to watch. And I love how it flows out, which is cool.
Well,
and talking
one
about
of the
creation,
geniuses of your brain, Trucks, and your son's brain is that when you're ADHD, and if you then throw in like dysgraphia, dyslexia, executive functioning, any kind of other language processing thing, you tend to be an experiential learner. So for
Yeah, very much
me,
so.
reading about something isn't how I learn it. For better or for worse, I have to jump into the swimming pool and teach myself to swim.
Tactile.
And that's how I've gone about business. It makes for very painful mistakes, but it also makes for really accelerated learning.
Yeah. Do you find joy in that though? Like it's almost like, is it like masochistic, borderline?
No, I feel the most alive when I'm learning something new or when I'm sharing what I've learned with somebody.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm the same. Like I love doing it, but it's almost like I enjoy going and doing things that break and like, ooh, let's try it again. Like there's this, like you said, I feel most alive trying, creating, but it's almost like it takes me back to when you broke down your first TED Talk. Like you're talking about how you're pacing and you're sweating, and I'm like, this was amazing to watch the behind the scenes brain, and then watching in real time, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, is that kind of what you're still doing, so to speak?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know, you refer to that TEDx talk, which was the first speech that I've ever given, and it's basically a 21-minute long panic attack. If you go back and look at it, ignore the 28 million views and realize that is I'm doing math, 13 years ago, 2011, that 10 years ago.
10, 11,
You know, so I'm 43. I'm facing bankruptcy. There are liens on the house. My husband has dropped out of the restaurant, is basically struggling with alcoholism, and I'm hopping from job to pay our bills. And I've been asked to give a talk about how to change your jobs. I mean, talk about imposter syndrome. And so you look at my chest. About a minute in, I've got this raging chest rash that people have when they're anxious or they drink too much. I mean, I'm darting all over the stage like an idiot. I had no idea that would go anywhere. It was the first TEDx conference. It didn't go anywhere for a year. And then a year later, they started putting the TEDx talks online. And that would have been late 2012. And then it sat and went nowhere for another year. That would have been 2013. And it wasn't until the end of 2013 that it started to gain traction online, and that's when people started to reach out.
Wow, that's super cool. It's just cool to be able to peek into the mind of someone. It's almost like you unintentionally became successful, but not unintentionally. You know, like it's this weird.
Well,
like,
our
cool
friend
way of
says I
having it.
became intentional despite myself. So, you know, I I certainly probably made it harder than I needed to, but I didn't know any other way. I think, you know, if there are some lessons learned, it would be reach out for help sooner. So reach out to people that are 2 steps ahead of you. Go to their seminars. Don't judge them. Learn from them. They are your best resources. And I built in the dark and alone, banging my head against the wall for too long, and it was very lonely, and it took longer than it needed to. And if you simply go to a few events in the area that you want to have a breakthrough in, you'll be shocked at how fast your growth accelerates and how you build a community and how that empowers you. The other piece of advice that I would give is pay attention to what is causing you friction or angst, or you don't like it, and try to outsource that to somebody who's amazing. You know, I recently hired our friend Evan Carmichael after meeting everybody at the Napa Mastermind Group. And I almost didn't hire him because I was kind of embarrassed to have him look at our YouTube channel.
I know the feeling
Because our
personally.
YouTube channel has been kind of like a just post it, sort of like the newsletter. I don't know what to do over there, just post it. And he looked at it, and it was kind of embarrassing to have him walk us through all the basics that weren't getting done and all the buttons that needed to be switched on. And a month into it, we've like 10x'd our growth. Because I asked for help in an area where I don't have expertise. And so don't be stupid like I was.
Yeah, I
Reach
agree.
out before you're ready. Spend money before you think you should. And offload the stuff that you don't like to somebody who knows what the hell they're doing.
Boom. It's funny. I've had the exact same conversation. He doesn't pull punches either. Like, he'll tell you transparent. Like, he's very, and I love that about him because, like, I'm not getting all buttered up and it works direct for me. Going, going back to point one, I do know, like, people know they should reach out to people, but inherently they sometimes don't feel good enough or feel like they're prepared, like you said. And then it makes me think of the high five habit. Like, sometimes you need to kick yourself in the butt and get yourself going before you can progress on to the next step. That book is cool. The way it came to be is cool. The concept behind it is so simple. It's so powerful. Do you mind unpacking like that, how this little thing came to be and how it helps people now?
Sure. Well, the high five habit, first of all, is super simple. I'm just on a mission to get everybody to add a high five to their reflection in the mirror every single morning after they brush their teeth. I want you to make it part of your morning routine. It takes less than 5 seconds. And what's really cool about it is that it leverages all kinds of programming that is already in your brain and in your nervous system that you have aimed and used to support and cheer for other people. Yeah. And I'm going to teach you that by adding a high five in the mirror every morning in the bathroom as part of your morning routine, you will turn all of that amazing brain and energy power right back at yourself. And so that's all that it is. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to do anything other than high five the mirror. Yes, it sounds cheesy. It is shocking how powerful it is. And so given that you have a background in the NFL, yeah, why don't you tell everybody what a high five when a teammate gives it to you, or you give it to them, or you give it to one of your kids? What does a high five mean in your brain, Trucks?
Yeah, I get little chills. You said that because it takes me back to memories of actually getting them, right? Like, I mean, for me, college, high school, college, NFL, you always have these moments where you're fighting to get something done. You're fighting to go play, to stand out. And not only do you have your teammates watch it, the whole stadium watch it. And when you have that moment, when you make a play and the crowd roars, like, one of the coolest things is the people that you care most about, them walking up to you, looking you dead in your eyes and saying, great job, and then giving you a high five. Like, it's an immersive, like, everything disappears for a second, like, oh, I feel good. And then the reciprocation of that, right? When someone does well, it's like, oh my, how else do I express? But high five. And it's like you're giving that to somebody else and you see them express. It's like giving a gift. And so it's interesting, when you first told me this, I was like, this is so crazy how simple and it's been in front of everybody's faces this entire time. But yeah, I never thought of doing it to me.
Yeah. And what happens when you add this to your morning routine, and this is why this is so cool, is that the positive impact, and here's what you can expect. Number one, you can expect to experience a boost in your mood, and that's because your brain will give you a drip of dopamine. You can expect to feel a small jolt of energy. That's because your nervous system recognizes it as a celebratory gesture. And you can expect, in less than 5 days of doing this every single morning as part of your morning routine, you can expect to have the critic in your head start to turn off. It's crazy. And, there's just a tremendous amount of research about how it works, why it works, but it's working because you have a lifetime of positive association with the high five. And what we know based on research is that if you want to change your life, your habits, your relationship, your health, anything, you want to make more money, what research shows is that you will be more successful, more inspired, more motivated, and more fulfilled if you are kind and encouraging to yourself along the way, especially when things are hard. And, I can play this out in a very common sense way. So let's say that you're on the field, right? Take us back to a really big moment where you were the person that was like the person that was supposed to catch the ball or do whatever and score the touchdown that was going to take us back to a moment like that.
Yeah, so it was be defense, and I was playing. We're playing at Arizona State, and it was my senior year, and it was like 3rd and long, and Arizona's at our place. We need to win the game. I think we're ahead. We needed to get a stop, and there was a play call where I got the blitz. And here's a funny thing: I found out afterwards that the adjustment they made, I shouldn't have blitzed, and so all of a sudden the ball's hiked. I take off, and the quarterback almost gets away. I have a video of this. I dive to the left. My fingertips grab his shoulder pads just enough to swing him down. We stop him for a loss, sack. The stadium erupts. I'm by myself. There's no teammates around, and just this flood of amazing. Like, to this day, like I can still picture the people's eyes I caught when I was looking in the stands.
Incredible. By the way, what you just described, that moment where the stadium erupts and your nervous system has this jolt of electricity, so riveting and pulling you into the presence that even a decade or so later, you can remember the faces of the people who you looked in the eyes. What you're describing is the opposite of trauma. That is a positive celebratory imprint in your nervous system. Your brain remembers that experience, and so does your body, because you got such a flood of positive experience that just like trauma gets remembered in the negative, those positive moments, those heightened states of emotion also get remembered, which is a really important thing to understand. So back to this kind of moment. So let's say that right before you're all about to line up, time out, you all go over to the sideline. And you're in a huddle and you're talking about the play. And it's now determined that you're the person. Tell me, what do you need to hear from that coach in that moment so that you feel empowered and capable and confident in your ability to rise to this moment?
If I was genuinely thinking about it, I'd be like, hey, like just a look in the eyes of like, you got this. I have no doubt you got it. Like just that little, or even it's funny, football coaches don't do that. Somebody just look at you like a grin, kind of like, I know you got this. That's all I'd need.
Yeah. Now imagine if you're in that situation where you're facing this big moment and the coach looked at you and said, okay, it's trucks. And people around go, trucks? Are you shitting me?
That'd be a different feeling.
Did you see what he did? That loser? He's not going to make that, and they start trashing you. What would happen to your level of motivation and to your mood? How would you feel in that moment?
Fall off a cliff. It would. You wouldn't. It would be. It'd almost be like you'd focus so heavily on like not hitting the tree, you'd hit the tree.
Correct. I'm taking you to this storytelling to illustrate a very simple point. We all need every single day that coach to look us in the eye before we start the day and say, you got this. And you need to do that for yourself. And what's happening for every human being right now in the morning is that as they're brushing their teeth, what you're thinking is, you can't handle this. You already fucked up yesterday and you're already behind the ball, and you're trashing yourself before you send yourself into your day. And just like those teammates would make you fall off the cliff, every single one of us, as part of our morning routine, we push ourselves off a cliff, mentally, emotionally, mood, all of it. And that's how we all start our day subconsciously. And I want to get everybody to start practicing this high five, because what happens is you tap into that programming of the coach. And even if you screwed up, raising your hand says, shake it off. I still believe in you. Now get out there and go do it. And that's what you're going to feel shifting in your mind, body, and spirit. The sense of belief, the sense of encouragement that we all need to face the day. That's what the high five habit is.
I love it. It's funny is you say this moment like of doing this. When I was a kid at 15, I know you don't know much of my story, but there was a moment when I had like everything looked like bleak. I was like, I suck at this. I was actually chalked up football. I was done. And I had a moment where I looked myself in the eyes and all I said was like, you're going to be great. That wasn't a high five, but literally 15. I remember the mirror. I remember everything. And it was that moment that I tell people that was a catalyst for me. Just that singular moment of like, you're going to be great was this affirmation to myself of something more than what myself previously saw. And so I fully believe in this. I do it now. I don't do the same high five. I'll be like, hey, bro, you're dope. Like I say stuff in the mirror because why not? I mean, I got to be crazy a little bit, right? But I love this. And I love that you've put it together in a way that's simple and an actionable thing. It's one thing to have it be an idea, but the science that floats around sometimes, people don't know how to put it into action. So I love that you made it so simple, so clear. Where can people get this book if they want to pick it up, they want to enjoy it? Where do we send them?
You can get it absolutely anywhere books are sold. I mean, it's coming out in like 34 languages. We just got Polish today, mailed to us from the publisher. Cool. But, the more important thing, because I know so many people are struggling, is that just like Trucks, we put out so much free content every single day. So if you're not in a position to buy the book, just know that you can take this free challenge called the High Five Challenge. All you got to do is Google it. You can go to the YouTube channel. There are new videos every single day. In fact, I'm halfway through reading the book for free, video by video for folks around the world. And so there's just a tremendous amount of content on there. And if you're interested in a newsletter with no strategy that I hate to write, you can sign up for that at melrobbins.com.
I love it. I love it. Oh, man. Good job.
We're changing that, though. It's about to become pep talk videos.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt. I'm actually excited to see those, too. I think I do. I'm pretty sure I've subscribed. I subscribe to everybody's stuff all over the place. I'm pretty sure I see yours come in. Man, I'm excited for this last question. I asked everybody the same question. You could take it wherever you want. Again, here's a question. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
I promise that you should listen to this lady in the glasses. Give her 5 seconds. It'll change your life.
Wow. I think, I'll see if I can find it. I have this little area where I have these weird little noises, and there are a few that I've ever used, but here you go. This is the first one we've ever used in a podcast. Oh, shift. That's a good one. That was a good one. Yes. Thank you.
I brought
Seriously,
it full circle, bitch. Here we go.
Full circle, all
back
around.
To the cafe.
It's like you brought it all back to the beginning. I love it. Yes, you should listen to her because obviously you just listened to her. So, man, there's so much more to learn from her life-wise. I seriously enjoy everything that comes across the feed. Like, it's just some way you have the artist in you has got it down, and I'm excited to see what the next level of Mel looks like. Those of you guys who are tuned in, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I know you could have been anywhere in the world, maybe talking to somebody at a coffee shop, but you chose to come hang with us. And I thank you, seriously, for spending time here. I believe that if we take something from you, which is time, we should give something back. Mel did that without a shadow of a doubt. If you found that this episode was powerful, changed your life in some way, I'd love for you to rate, review, share the bad boy, but also there is someone in your life that you want to be better, and sometimes you're too close to touch their lives. And so if you can share this episode with them, this might be the seed that needs to be planted for it to grow into something amazing. So please do that. Outside of that, Mel, thank you again for hanging out with us. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.